What is up, my night god people? How's everybody doing today? Hopefully y'all are doing well, and hopefully y'all are enjoying my content. For those of you that are new viewers and you haven't seen my content before, if you like the odd and supernatural, this is your page. And if you happen to decide that you like my content and you want to see a little bit more, check out my playlists. I have lives, full videos, and shorts all separated. So those of you that have subscribed because of a short video you saw in the YouTube Shorts program, just go ahead and check the playlist. I have a shorts playlist, a live playlist, and a full-length video playlist. The full-length video playlist is the playlist that finishes the stories that I start in the shorts. Because at the moment, shorts is only 1 minute long, I had to go post the rest of my stories in my full-length video playlist. That being said, again, I hope you all are well. There's a lot of good stuff in the making, so stay tuned to my content. I'm going to keep posting. I've been busy, so I haven't done very many lives as of late, but that'll change. I will have more lives coming soon. But in the meantime, just watch my longer videos in between 10 and 15 minutes. These videos go into more depth on certain topics. After watching this video, if you like the idea of giants that inhabited Earth, or any similar content, stick around. I'm going to add frames at the end of my video to take you to another one. But before we continue, you know the drill. Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you can get an alert every time I post. Trust me, you don't want to miss some of the stuff I have in the works. Also, I have a podcast. A lot of people have been asking me if I have one. I don't post on it regularly, simply because I don't have what it takes right now to record an episode and then upload it. I have to convert it from a video file to an MP3 and then upload it, which I'm currently working on, but all my lives I'll have to screen record off from platforms. And also, if you're into Telegram, go ahead and check mine out. It's just simply Night God. I hope you enjoy the following video. It's on the Book of Enoch and the Watchers. There's much more to the story, and I also believe I have found proof on the ocean floor that giants were once over 2 miles tall. So without further ado, here is the Book of Enoch and the Watchers. What is up, my night god people? How's everybody doing today? Hopefully y'all are doing well, and hopefully y'all are enjoying my content. For those of you that are new viewers and you haven't seen my content before, if you like the odd and supernatural, this is your page. And if you happen to decide that you like my content and you want to see a little bit more, check out my playlists. I have lives, full videos, and shorts all separated. So those of you that have subscribed because of a short video you saw in the YouTube Shorts program, just go ahead and check the playlist. I have a shorts playlist, a live playlist, and a full-length video playlist. For those of you that... The full-length video playlist is the playlist that finishes the stories, and a full-length video playlist. For those of you that... The full-length video playlist is the playlist that finishes... This is the Book of Enoch, and the first story, the Book of the Watchers. For those of you that aren't familiar, the Book of Enoch was part of the Dead Sea Scrolls, found in 1946 and 47. It's an ancient Hebrew religious text that follows the story of Enoch, Noah's great-grandfather. The account was written in 200 to 300 BC. But the stories are said to have taken place before the Great Flood. In the first book, Enoch tells the story of the Watcher. Now, what exactly are the Watchers? As the name would suggest, the Watchers were tasked by the Lord to watch over Earth and humanity. They could literally see and hear everything. They were considered the messengers or the middle ground between Earth and heaven. Enoch would describe them as angels, but they weren't necessarily angels in good standing with God. There were over 200 assigned watchers, and they watched over the children of men for years. They would observe as men multiplied and became obsessed with the beauty of their daughters. Eventually, they would grow tired of this arrogance, and they would decide to descend upon earth and take mortal wives to bear their children. After the 200 watchers would observe mankind, boasting about the beauty of their daughters for years, they would descend upon earth and use them to bear their children. The leader of the watchers feared not all would agree with his idea, and that the punishment for such a great sin would all fall upon him. So he gathered all 10 chiefs of the Watchers, and they made an oath not to abandon this plan. This oath would also bound them to one another, meaning if one got punished, they all did. So the Watchers would leave their post, descend upon earth, and take mortal wives. The chief Watchers, mainly Azazel, would share secrets forbidden to mankind. He would teach them how to make breastplates, sword, and shield, and would show them about the known metals of earth. They would teach them of jewelry and beautifying of the eyelids, and costly stone coloring tinctures, namely makeup. From there arose much godlessness. Eventually, this would lead to the Nephilim. These were giants born of watchers and mortal women, and it wasn't long before they would lose control of them. So the watchers take mortal wives and have children. These are the Nephilim. The Nephilim are giants, and they're said they could be up to 1,000 feet tall. At first, the giants and humans were able to coexist. But eventually, the giants would turn, and they'd start pillaging and murdering humans. Between this and Watcher Azazel showing them of armor and sword, which would lead to war and battles among men. After for years watching this take place, archangels went to the Lord. And of course, the Lord would already have a plan. Each of them would get a specific task, and this would all lead to the end of days. Destroying everything was the only way to guarantee the Nephilim wouldn't survive. Then man could retake Earth without hindrance. Archangel Uriel would be tasked with informing Noah, letting him know that he would be the one to repopulate Earth. Raphael was to eliminate Azazel. Since he did the vast majority of teaching the humans sin, Raphael was to open up a hole in the desert and cast him there. After the Watchers create sin among men and they create the Nephilim, God has had enough and he informs the archangels of his plan for the end of days. As this was the only way the Nephilim wouldn't survive, come back and reproduce, hindering man from existence. So each archangel gets sent down with a specific task preceding the end of days. Uriel gets sent down to tell Noah of what's to come and to prepare because he's going to repopulate the earth someday. Raphael gets tasked with taking out Azazel, the main teacher of sin. He is to open up a hole in the desert and cast him into the depth, pinning him there till Judgment Day. Gabriel is sent to kill children of men born of sin and the giants, and he would do this by inciting a war between the two. Michael got to take out the leader of the Watchers, Samiaza. He was also to be cast into a fiery dungeon until Judgment Day. He was also to take out any of the Watchers who indulged in mortal flesh. Where Enoch comes into play in all this, he's the middleman. He's the messenger between them and God. When he tells the Watchers of God's plan, they panic. They asked Enoch to help them and sign a petition. Later that night, Enoch had a dream and God said no. The end of days ensued. They took unto themselves wives and chose one for each himself. And they three became pregnant, and they bare great giants, whose height was 3,000 ells. Now if you don't know what ell means, elbow to hand. That's a unit of measure they used back then. In certain societies, the length an ell represented differed, ranging from what is commonly known as 18 inches. But as I looked it up, the average from the French to the Scottish was well over 2 feet. The Scottish, 54 inches was an ell. So I've been looking into Norse and Greek mythology, and they talk about Zeus, the son of Cronus. Cronus was a titan, and he ate all of his children in fear that they would overthrow his throne. Cronus' wife, Rhea, grew angry over this, so she decided to take one of his sons and hide him. His name was Zeus, and he was hidden raised on Crete Island. So a while back, I remember doing a video on Crete Island and how there was a lot of giants' remains found there. The remains found ranged anywhere from 40 feet up to 72 feet in length. And I also read that there was a lot of giant activity around Sardinia, so I began looking on Google Earth to check it out. Crete Island, Sardinia. And here's what I found on the ocean floor next to Sardinia. All of these, what look like footsteps. I'm saying if you took a regular person and told them to take steps and multiple steps on the beach in clay or sand and then mimic them, these will line up pretty close to the same steps and foot patterns as what a human would lay. So I humored the idea and thought, well, maybe it was a giant. And here's what I found. Upon zooming in and using the measurement tool on Google Earth, one of those footsteps was 4,625 feet. There's more. And these footprints appeared all over, up the coast of Africa, all through the Mediterranean. You could find these footprints. And what's more amazing, I found some that strided out. Stride 10.4 miles. So I guess what I'm saying is, could these footprints have been left by a titan? Possibly even Cronus. And my boy Mini Minuteman, who criticized me about finding footprints on the ocean floor 2.1 miles deep, no, he didn't need a snorkel. He was over 2 miles tall, and his feet print much larger than 7 feet. The stories of the Titans I believe is true, and they were massive beyond belief. Poseidon, said to be a giant god of the sea. Could they be his feet print? God of the sea, he could travel through all the oceans without even having to go underwater. Now I know that sounds crazy, but it did say in the book of Enoch 3,000 ells. When doing the math, that ranged from the smallest 4,500 feet to up to 12,500 feet. So before I continue, smash that like button, hit the bell, and subscribe to my page for more content like this. I know some of the stuff I post can seem far-fetched, But rather than disregard these people that are telling these stories in ancient times as total quacks, why not take them seriously? Why not legitimize them? This is how they knew how to relay what they experienced. Today, if there was a flood, everything would be gone. Everything. Record of everything we have. But what would be left? Certain people that lived, that told the legacy on. Through story, around campfires, they would tell these stories of great titans and gods that roamed Earth. They could simply be higher beings, extraterrestrials, or they could be divine, or both. But I think as mankind, we need to stop putting limits on what is possible in this world. The simple notion that Gaia, Mother Nature, creator of all, is a living, breathing organism in itself is absolutely fantastical. Yes, our planet has a consciousness. Our planet is alive. It is a living organism. And when you abuse her and when you treat her like crap, she will fight back. She will preserve her survival. And so will the higher beings. The giants, they were abominations. They were evil. And the sin on earth was great at these times. The fallen, the watchers, the Anunnaki, much sin, much evil. And that's kind of the way it's going at the moment. She even creates her own organic supercomputer that creates life and influences life, opens the 7 chakras, while the evil side sent in the same stuff, but it only opens 3 chakras, head, life, and sexual chakra, instead of all 7. That's why society is going the way it is. Back in Atlantean times, the Atlanteans were persuaded with technology and convinced by evil extraterrestrials, the Anunnaki and the gray aliens. They were convinced to open a portal. And when they opened the Stargate in the universe, the Anunnaki and the Greys sent in meteors. They were full of the evil black goo and black stones. These evil black stones convince people and sway them towards the evil. That's why it's only 3 chakras, head, life, and sexual chakra. They lose the heart chakra, empathy. And if there's ever been a time where there was lack of empathy, it's now. The story goes in World War II that a German SS soldier went into a mine shaft and he found these black rocks. They would later find out they were meteorites. He took them back to base where a certain leader came into contact with him, lost all empathy, and wiped out an entire civilization of people. This stuff is real, people. It is here. So open your hearts. Alright, y'all, so my boy is back at it again. For those of you that don't know, I got a source who lives in Cali whose grandfather and father hailed from Mexico. They share stories, and they shared their folklore with him. And what he says about the giants, y'all, come on, here we go. So his grandfather would say that there's 5 different types of giants that have inhabited Earth. And of these 5 different types of giants, 2 were evil. He would explain the largest giants to ever inhabit Earth would walk from land to land through the oceans. The deepest of waters would come up to the majority of their shoulders, but the biggest of all, it would only come up to their waist. His grandfather didn't know much about these giants because they were the oldest. These giants would die off and there were very few left even before the first Great Earth War. That they were full of energy and they were highly intelligent. So much so that they became one with Mother Nature. That they were pure, nothing but love and light. That they were so in tune with Mother Nature and Mother Earth that upon their deaths they would become island chains or mountain ranges. Sicilian folklore about giants explain the same thing, but they did have conflicts, and many of those conflicts led to a lot of their demise. The second type of giants, and the second tallest, ranged from 20 to 40 feet tall. These giants were dumb and generally overweight. Not only would they eat each other, but they would eat humans as well. They would literally destroy everything in their path, and were easily manipulated and bribed by evil factions on Earth. His grandfather would say that these giants were clumsy and slow, easily killed by a fast opponent. Literally abominations. This brings us to the third type. The third group of giants were 20 to 30 feet tall. They were blue and they had horns, massive goat horns, and that they loved to party. These giants were good-natured and generally didn't like violence. They were highly intelligent and had the power to heal. They had a few warriors to protect them, but other than that, they were not a violent faction. His grandfather would say that these giants had the sacred knowledge of old. When the Great Earth Wars came, They didn't want to partake and they didn't want to fight, but they would provide healing for the good factions. And their warriors that did fight were super fast and were absolute killing machines. This made me think of Norse mythology and the frost giants of old. But this brings us to the fourth type. There will be a part 2. If you want to see the fourth and fifth types, check out my live. The fourth group of giants were 15 to 30 feet tall. They had eagle or reptilian legs, were sometimes green, and had wings. Book of Enoch, anybody? The Fallen? They were so evil, they loved to eat humans, especially offspring. These beings possessed evil magical powers, so much so that when they would walk through Mother Nature, everything around them and behind them would die. They would lure in men and women and control them with their black magic. With their flying abilities, they were a force to be reckoned with. They almost looked angelic. His grandfather would go on to state that they were so evil that they could be killed with water and dirt when shoved in their mouth. That's how out of tune their energy was with Mother Nature. The fifth group of giants were 15 to 30 feet tall. These were our ancient ancestors, and they looked just like us. They were inherently good, and they wanted to help mankind succeed. They hail from all over the world, and they hailed from a time when our ancestors were just actually that tall. At this time, before the Third Earth War, the nations were all love and light. They were in tune with Mother Nature. The Great Flood pushed them into the subterranean pockets, where it is said today some of them have been kept cryogenically frozen in crystalline-like structures. It's even believed by some that they're awakening today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Come back for more. Like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. Love you guys. Peace out. All right, according to the Book of Enoch, that's how the giants came to inhabit Earth. Originally, I was going to end it there, but lately, people have been asking me to do a compilation on my videos about giants. So I figured after doing a video on how the giants originally came to inhabit Earth, don't I go ahead and just post some of the stories I've heard about encounters with giants on Earth. The following video is the video that put me onto giants in the first place. It's the very first account I heard that could possibly be true. Following that video, I'm going to update you on some events that supposedly happened this last spring in 2021. So stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy the legend of the Kandahar Giant. This is the legend of the Kandahar Giant and his encounter with U.S. Special Forces. It was 2002 in Kandahar during the war in Afghanistan when a U.S. Special Forces unit that specialized in rescue missions was called to duty. Their mission? To find a unit that seemed to have just vanished deep within the mountains. They wasted no time and began moving as they wanted to be back before nightfall. According to an eyewitness that was part of the Special Forces unit, they had trekked 4 miles up the side of the mountain and they were almost to the last pinpointed location of the lost unit when they began finding broken military equipment strewn about all throughout the mountains. That's when they looked up and noticed a massive cave. As they approached the cave, they noticed a rancid smell and began seeing body parts laying all over the ground. When all of a sudden, an 18-foot tall giant flew out of the cave, spearing one of their men. Stunned, the unit immediately opens fire, letting them have it. It was a monster, the witness explained. You could see in your peripherals the bodies stacked up at the cave entrance. This led us to believe he was a cannibal. With a red beard and scarlet red long hair covering his shoulders, and Dan, whose body lay limp at the end of his spear. As I noticed he had 6 fingers and toes, the lieutenant yells fire, snapping me back to reality. We began shooting the beast, quickly noticing the bullets were having little effect. The beast tosses Dan 30 feet off the end of the spear, as if nothing but a toy. He moved so swiftly, you would never believe he was actually as big as he was. Wielding his spear, he began barreling towards us with bloodthirsty rage on his face. And as if instinct kicked in all at once, we all yelled out, "Aim for the head!" The team was carrying an M4 submachine gun, a .308 sniper rifle, and a Barrett 50 caliber. Within seconds, he fell to the ground lifeless. And the team remembers the day they battled the Kandahar Giant, Part 3. The giant lay there dead. They radio back to base, and a chopper comes and picks it up. It weighed in about 1,200 pounds. This beast had a total of 12 fingers and 12 toes. And by witness account, it smelled like it hadn't bathed in probably 10 years. Nasty. And of course, standard procedure as they got back to the base, they made him sign a hush-hush agreement, stating that the world wasn't ready for this info. The witness who shared this story felt that the people should know, and that there was no reason to keep us in the dark. At the end of the day, I know this is hard for some of you to believe, but giants have been in our history since the Bible, the biblical days. The Nephilim are fallen angels that came down and bred with humans. This enhanced our race. That being said, I ain't telling you gotta believe shit. Believe what you want. And one guy promised he was 22 feet as well. His body is in Ohio. Tune in next time. Alright fam, you're gonna want to hear this one. A couple days ago, a soldier with the highest security clearance sent me a message on my TikTok. In his message, he would state that he might know why Biden left Afghanistan the way he did. Intrigued, I said, please explain. He disclosed that he had top secret security clearance, and that it was his second tour in Afghanistan. He was a radio technician, and he would fix the broken comms soldiers would bring back to the FOB, or the Forward Operating Base. While in the Middle East, he would work with the best spec ops teams in the military. From MARSOC, which is U.S. Marine Corps Special Forces, to the SEALs, the Rangers, and the British Marines. And about 7 months ago is when he got back from his last tour. It was around the time that Biden first took office, and the same time when something would take place that made U.S. forces decide it wasn't worth being there. And here is why. Viewer discretion advised. He was nearing the end of his tour when one of his SEAL buddies brought back a bunch of broken radios. After a mission where his team would take on 60% casualties, which was highly unusual in Afghanistan at this time. And they had been sent out on a patrol in the surrounding hills and mountains. They were in the Kandahar region of Afghanistan. Officially, his buddy would tell him they got attacked by a platoon-sized element of the Taliban. But for some reason, he could sense that he wasn't hearing the entirety of the story. Well, lucky for our technician, he had recently snuck booze into the wire. And he would end up getting drunk with the SEAL team member for 6 nights straight. When on the very last night of drinking together, the SEAL team member, out of the blue, would say you can't tell anybody about this. And the shit he's about to say should never be repeated. Our whistleblower would explain that the SEAL team member wouldn't go into gritty detail. He assumed it was either because he hadn't processed it yet, or someone forcibly told him not to tell a soul. During the mission, we would come up on a cave that was supposed to be a hostile outpost. But as they approached the outpost in the cave, they suddenly heard screaming inside. They then proceeded to a vantage point where they could get a better view, out of sight of any enemy combatants. And when they finally got in position and glanced down into the cave, they couldn't believe their eyes. It was a giant standing anywhere from 16 to 20 feet tall, fighting the Taliban. He was crushing them, limb from limb, tossing them around like rag dolls, killing one after another after another. The men were in shock. They couldn't believe what they were witnessing. They would watch for about 30 seconds and then decide it would be smart to take a tactical withdrawal. But as they were backing up, the giant would spot one of them. And with swift speed, he would pursue and be on top of them in seconds. He would engage and kill 3 of them immediately. So quickly, one of them called air support from an A-10. By the time the bombs buried the beast, he killed 8 SEALs and corpsmen. Wounding 2, but they survived. They were told to keep quiet because of backlash. Shortly after this incident, we would decide to make a hasty withdrawal. This would be the second time U.S. soldiers would battle a giant from Kandahar. Alright y'all, there seems to be some confusion on my Kandahar Giant 2.0 video. Apparently I should have been more clear. I figured because I said Biden and everything happened in 2021, people would be smart enough to put 2 and 2 together. This was a separate account from the original Kandahar Giant story that took place in 2001. This took place earlier this year, 2021. And I know people find it hard to believe, as that's why we'd pull out of Afghanistan, but they might know something more to the story. End of the day, it would make total sense as to why they left the military equipment, so they could protect themselves against said entities, and why they left so abruptly. Who knows? There might be a bunch of them. If there's one, there's many more. I'm not using a story from 2001 and now. Whole separate account. In 2014, there was a lawsuit filed against the Smithsonian Museum. It alleged that they have been withholding, even destroying evidence that giants ever existed on this planet. The Supreme Court ruled that they declassified documents back to 1900. Here's some of what they released. Reported back in 2015, a large giant was unearthed in Australia. It was said that this is the world's largest giant ever unearthed. Found near Ayers Rock, the skeleton is said to be 17 feet 4 inches tall. But shortly after unearthing, Professor Hans Zimmer was forced to hand it over to the government, and there has been no further reporting since. The next giant takes us to Pennsylvania. Reported in the Oil City Times in 1870 near West Hickory, Pennsylvania, the unearthing of arguably the largest giant ever found. This massive hominid stood at 18 feet tall. On October 7th, 1895, a newspaper named The World reported that one of the largest giants ever unearthed had been found. The mummified remains stood 9 feet tall. It is said to be known by locals as the place of the giants, since its discovery in 2002 by the Pentagon using geodesic satellite radar. They discovered large caverns cut right into the side of a mountain with no visible entrances at the surface. They were beings that seemed to have mastered technologies even more advanced than today's. The walls of these tunnels were smooth like polished marble. They start in the mountain at an even slope and then make a cut at a perfect 26-degree angle. This would lead up to a central room with a height of 30 meters tall and 100 meters wide. Lined up along both the left and the right walls were tables with a height of no less than 6 feet. On these tables were all types of ancient cuneiform writing, while there were some that were more familiar, like circles and triangles. On other tables, there seemed to be some sort of consoles with all sorts of cables coming out of them. These consoles could design holographic images based on scientific information. Welcome to the Buseji Mountains of Romania.